debacle after debacle. It's almost like the Trudeau government, but in a courtroom. Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. As many of you know, the show trial of Tamara Lich and Chris Barber has been trudging along in Ottawa, but there was a major update today that we wanted to dive into. And don't forget to join us live this Sunday, October 1st at 9:30 p.m. Eastern for Northern Perspective After Dark, where we will be discussing the incident that led to the Speaker of the House resigning.
Before we get to that, we'd like to give a shout out to Demure Deb for buying us a pizza. Help us keep this channel growing strong by hitting that like button to help push this out to more viewers, and subscribe to the channel so you're notified of our next episode. If you would like to support the channel, check out the description of this video for more details. Now let's get into it. Trial of Lich Barber takes hiatus after 3 weeks. Judge unhappy with Crown prosecutors. The trial of Tamara Lich and Chris Barber concluded its third week of hearings on Friday and will take a 2-week break. Justice Heather Perkins McVeigh will recall court Wednesday, October 11th, with September 29th set as the deadline to approve or not approve the evidence presented during their voir dire trial within a trial, is what that means, sections of the trial. Friday was day 13 of what was originally scheduled to be a 16-day trial. Perkins McVeigh scheduled an extra 10 court days on top of that, bringing the total to an anticipated 26 days.
So far, the hearings have spun from one voir dire to the next, with Crown witnesses appearing in court unprepared. Several of them have testified to have quote-unquote no notes, and instead would rely on their quote-unquote memory or notes written by quote-unquote other officers. Kim Aouette, General Manager of Emergency and Protective Services at the City of Ottawa, quote, brought no notes to the witness stand, end quote, the Democracy Fund tweeted from the courtroom Tuesday. Quote, he states that he intends to rely only on his memory for events that occurred roughly 19 months ago, end quote.
Yeah, because that's not a problem. Like, really? I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, never mind detailed events of something that happened almost 2 years ago. Like, this trial has been a farce from the beginning, and it just seems almost as if they're trying to self-sabotage themselves on the prosecution side. I don't understand this at all. I really don't. Later, Ayette said he had important notes that he had left in his office. Crown witness Captain Etienne Martel of the Sûreté de Québec appeared on the stand on Monday. He also had no notes and spoke through interpreters, one of which was dismissed after defense lawyers continually had to correct their translation before the judge. Martel wanted to use notes he had brought, but didn't write himself. Instead, they were prepared by a, quote, team of crowd control officers, end quote. Quote, one is a 5-page log, the other is an Excel spreadsheet, quote, tweeted Aidan Helmer of the court from the courtroom. Quote, he has no written notes or a typed investigative report and says 3 police squads were dispatched from Quebec, end quote.
Lawrence Greenspoon, counsel for Tamara Lich, asked Martel if he prepared any notes himself. No, Martel replied. Greenspoon asked if he made any notes when he attended 2 briefings. No, he said again. Crown witness Serge Arpin, former chief of staff for Jim Watson, former Ottawa mayor, breached court rules and contacted Crown attorneys Thursday evening.
This is just... You'd swear this was a poorly written episode that didn't make it to the cutting room floor of Law and Order.
Yeah, this is atrocious. I can't believe that the Crown prosecutor is trying to carry out justice in this manner. And, well, I mean, I guess that's what you have to do when you don't have a case.
Well, and you gotta wonder, was this prosecutor just thrown this as punishment for doing something? Because this is terrible.
Well, and whenever people say to a defense attorney or of a defense attorney, how can you be a defense attorney? How can you defend criminals? This is what they do. They make sure that the Crown prosecution doesn't get away with garbage like this.
Right. Now, there are people that end up being found innocent in these cases, and there are people that are innocent in these cases. I think we all agree, or at least most of us agree, even if you disagree with the convoy, there shouldn't have been charges laid here. This is just protesting. And if you want to have justice served, then you should have had bylaw officers out there ticketing everyone who was illegally parked. Justice served. But no one should be in a courtroom. No one should be fighting for their freedom. The irony of the Freedom Convoy. And the fact that these people are sitting there on the stand saying, yeah, so I don't have any notes, but I remember perfectly. We know some people in law enforcement, and what they tell us is eyewitness testimony is one of the most unreliable forms of evidence that you can bring into a courtroom.
Oh, yeah. After a shift, like, this is why you'll often see one or two police cars in, like, a Tim Hortons parking lot, for example, that after a shift, they'll sit there and just write notes while it's fresh in their minds so that they can use it in the future if they have to. But it sounds incredibly irresponsible for the police officers there to have not written any notes or be like, oh, I forgot them in my office.
Like an example is when you have the police sketchers, right? When they will talk to an eyewitness and they will say, describe the person, and then they'll try and, sketch them out. There's actually been cases where the police sketchers, have actually, shown people pictures and then come back and then ask them who they saw. They sketch it out, and it's the picture that they showed them before.
Oh, yeah. The Unabomber case was a perfect case of that, where the famous police sketch was actually a sketch of the original artist that the person who had seen Kaczynski was getting it confused with the artist that they had described it to the first time.
Right. So people's memories, incredibly poor when you're talking about court testimony. That's why you need hard evidence and forensic evidence. Good luck in this case. The other thing is that all of the video that has been shown by the Crown in the courtroom has been to Tamara's and Chris's benefit. It's essentially Tamara saying, comply with the police. Yet they're trying to paint this. The whole crux of the prosecution's case is that Tamara was telling everybody to stay and to not comply with the police. And she's done nothing of the sort in all of the videos that have been presented by the prosecution, no less.
Yeah, could you imagine if the guy trying to prosecute you was pretty much presenting the materials to acquit you to the judge? Like, this whole thing is just a kangaroo court.
And I'm getting the feeling, so the judge is obviously very annoyed because, she's questioning the prosecution, what are you doing? Why are you giving all of this evidence that literally has nothing to do with this case? So it makes you wonder if she's going to come back and make a decision on this. But anyway, there's some other juicy parts in this article, so let's keep going. Perkins McVeigh has shown her impatience with the Crown on several occasions, from being, quote, very unhappy, quote, with it in the first week, and questioning the relevancy of evidence presented by the Crown ever since. I'm going to keep going. She continuously had to pause the trial so the witness can step out of the courtroom and she can address yet another blunder by the Crown, such as neglecting to send the defense counsel's, quote, over 1,000 emails, quote, as part of its disclosure. To address this 1,000 email point, so what happened, it was a couple of days into the trial, and the so what's supposed to happen is that there's a period called discovery before a trial takes place, right? And what that means is the prosecution is supposed to provide every single piece of evidence to the defense so that they know what they're being accused of, and they have a right to see all the evidence being presented against them. That allows them to mount a defense against that evidence, okay? There is some screening sometimes that goes on before the trial where the judge will hear petitions from the defense saying this should or should not be thrown out as evidence or admitted, that sort of thing. But the point is by the time you get to the first day of trial, all of this evidence is supposed to be cleared and understood by both parties. Well, the problem is the Crown dropped 1,000 emails on the defense a couple days into the trial.
Yeah, it was like the second day, I think.
So they didn't even get to see it. And so the judge reamed out the prosecution because she knows, how the heck is this supposed to be a fair trial when you're dropping 1,000 emails that they haven't even seen yet that they need to incorporate into their defense, and the trial has already started. So it has been debacle after debacle. It's almost like the Trudeau government, but in a courtroom. That's how this is going.
Well, I mean, the judge is probably upset that this crap has been brought into her courtroom and it's wasting her time and taxpayer money on top of it. And the judge's concern is to make sure that justice is carried out in their courtroom and that a fair trial is brought.
Well, a good judge, yes, absolutely. Now, this one, in all fairness, seems like a good judge. Seems like they have no time for BS, and they're just trying to get to the truth. And what's frustrating them the most is that people are not coming prepared to court, and people are not playing by the rules. Judges can deal with controversial trials as long as everyone's playing by the rules, because they know that they were able to conduct the trial in a fair and straightforward way. The problem is the prosecution is so ill prepared, they are just falling over themselves, essentially trying to set tomorrow free. Now, what might happen after this 3-week hiatus is the judge may come back and say, you know what? This is ridiculous. I'm dismissing the case. That could happen. I doubt it will, but if they keep pushing this judge, who knows what she's going to do, because she may throw the crown out by the time she's done.